Here's another visual representation of how our soul and spirit and physical body interact with each other. So this first picture shows a linear progression of how the soul is bigger and more expansive than our spirit and physical bodies, and crystallizes or condenses down into a spirit form so that our soul can project its particular emotional material in a way that fits the laws that govern the spirit world so that we can navigate and manifest whatever we want. Furthermore, it goes down into the physical world where it does the same thing, right? The physical world is neutral, more or less, in its construction. It's how we interact with it spiritually that gives it various charge or does various damage or shows loving, the manifestation of loving influence, okay? So if we are displeased with how our physical body is or the physical earth, then we need to start taking a look at the emotional states that got us into that situation to begin with. Cause and effect. Instead of looking at the effect, be more diligent about investigating the true cause. Here's another visual representation, right? Our soul, again, is made of emotion, which is really just energy and motion, right? Makes sense. Our soul, when everything's working properly, energy's flowing through all this thing like all the time, right? It's able to do its thing. All the signals are firing, okay? And the same thing with the spirit body. If our soul is totally in operation, then our spirit body will be in excellent operation. And likewise, it will condense down into what we understand, which is not really, but we understand it to be the physical world, which is represented here. Now, let's say, for example, that we've got a blemish in our soul. How does that actually look? Well, let me erase some of this stuff here. Let's take an example and say, that I believe that violence is okay under certain circumstances. Now, I know it to be the case that the Creator feels that it's never violence for children to act out in violence in any circumstance, no matter what's going on. But I'll leave you to experiment with that. But let's say I believe that violence is okay in certain circumstances, which is what most people believe, right? Because most people will claim to be peaceful and loving, yet if they feel threatened, they have no problem, allowing other people, like the military, to go into lands and destroy people and resources in land to acquire things under the guise of so-called safety, or gives power to other various authority figures to enact draconian laws that hinder our ability to express ourselves in loving ways. Let's say I believe it's okay to be violent in a certain circumstance. It's a false belief. It is a blemish in my soul, and it is a spot where I will not be able to receive God's love. Well, that spot will condense and create an issue in our spirit body. If you can think of like your chakras not spinning properly, or various innate human abilities that we don't even know of are hindered. Things like telepathy, for example. There's no reason why we all shouldn't be able to communicate without using verbal language. Verbal language is very limiting, and we can talk about that in a different video. But, words are limited. Your ability to communicate using verbal language is limited to the other person's understanding that they know what those words mean, but also that they are able to understand the tonality of the thing that you're trying to say. So, like, you could be trying to say, like, oh, it's a warm day. Well, is it warm to you or is it hot to somebody else? You may have different definitions of the same word even if you're understanding what the person's saying. So clearly there are many limitations to verbal communication, and actually in the higher realms of the spirit world, those celestial beings who are extremely loving that we could be communicate totally through intention. It's pretty neat. Anyway, so in your spirit body, you'll get a huge blockage. And if we don't feel out our emotions in our physical body, we end up with physical problems. Notice the ratio of the blemish to the layer. A small blemish in the soul creates a much larger blemish in the spirit body, because it's a condensation and crystallization of what you're manifesting. And if you've got error in your soul, you're manifesting that error. And then it condenses again into an even bigger issue into your physical body. This is what aging is. When we're talking about cell replication and genetic material, I feel we're talking about crystallized emotions. And so, yes, I believe that each individual person has the ability to alter their genetic structure by feeling their own emotions. Now, you may think that's kind of a ridiculous notion, but again, you're making judgments about what you don't know. If we use our imaginations, which we've talked about in previous videos, it allows you to even start to conceptualize that something like that could be true. If this is true, and if you know the principles that which guide it, you can heal yourself, and you won't need anyone else to help you.